My mind used to be my sharpest weapon. It cut through complexity, held long trains of thought, and made me feel powerful simply by thinking. Now it feels like a phone battery, sometimes full, often drained, always begging for a charger. Every ping, every scroll, every tiny interruption steals a sliver of my attention until the edge of my thinking is dull and blunt. If you've ever sat down to work and felt that invisible rope tugging you toward noise, you already know the quiet tragedy of our age. Attention, once a luxury, is now the most precious and rare resource anyone can possess. There's a word for reclaiming that resource. Cal Newport calls it deep work. It's not a productivity trick, a better to-do list, or another app to gamify your focus. Deep work is the ability to focus without distraction on a cognitively demanding task. It's the state where your skills grow fastest, where creativity lives, and where real, lasting value is made. In a world of speed and shallow engagement, the capacity to do deep work is becoming a modern superpower. Quietly rare, wildly valuable, and completely within reach if you choose to build the habit. Let's begin by drawing a contrast you can feel in your bones. Shallow work versus deep work. Shallow work is easy to replicate. It's meetings that could have been an email, responding to messages, formatting files, and tasks that require low cognitive effort. Shallow work fills your calendar and produces the noisy satisfaction of busyness. Deep work, on the other hand, is rare and precious. It's where your brain goes into a concentrated trance and produces things that were not possible before. A paper that reframes a debate, a piece of software that solves a real problem, an argument that changes minds. Shallow work is visible, loud, and immediate. Deep work is invisible from the outside until it delivers disproportionate results. Why is deep focus so scarce today? The answer is both cultural and technological. We live in an attention economy designed to steal our focus. Social networks, infinite feeds, and the architecture of modern work reward constant connectivity. Every notification is engineered to capture a tiny portion of your attention so that the platform keeps you coming back. Over time, those tiny captures add up to a drained mind. But scarcity breeds value. Because deep focus is so hard to sustain in our noisy environment, the people who learn to protect and direct their attention gain a tremendous advantage over everyone else. There's a neurological truth behind this, and it's surprisingly simple. Attention is a muscle that needs training. When you try to perform a deep task, your brain resists. It craves the dopamine hits delivered by quick, shallow rewards, the scroll, the like, the immediate answer. But the more you give in to distraction, the easier distraction becomes. Your mind learns to flit. Conversely, the more you train your attention to stay, the deeper it can go. Deep work doesn't require mystical talent. It demands deliberate practice. Scheduling distraction-free time, building rituals that cue concentration, and practicing the discipline of resisting short-term rewards for long-term gains. Newport gives us 4 rules to build this strength. They are not commandments to worship, but practical structures to make deep work a habit. Work deeply, embrace boredom, quit social media, and drain the shallows. Each rule is a doorway into a different part of the architecture of concentration. Taken together, they are a blueprint for regaining your capacity to focus. Rule 1. Work deeply. You can't drift into deep work. It's not a place you accidentally stumble upon. It's a place you engineer. Ritualize the practice. Decide where you'll work, for how long, and how you'll work once you sit down. Design tiny rituals that reduce friction. A place that signals seriousness. A short warm-up routine to prime your mind. A timer that gently enforces the boundary. The goal is to make deep concentration a predictable habit instead of a rare miracle. Protect these blocks as if they were appointments with your most important future self, because they are. Consider the craftsman who trains for years in silence. The musician rehearsing a difficult passage until the fingers and brain move as one. Deep work is rehearsal for thinking. It is the environment in which your skills improve the fastest. People who adopt this rule find that creativity emerges not from bursts of inspiration, but from patient, focused struggle. The hardest problems often yield not to frantic multitasking, but to slow, thorough attention. Rule 2. Embrace boredom. This one sounds odd at first. Who wants to embrace boredom in a world built to avoid it? But boredom is the training ground for attention. Our brains have become addicted to constant novelty. When boredom arrives, many of us reflexively reach for the phone to relieve it. That small automatic switch conditions the mind to seek distraction the moment thinking becomes uncomfortable. Newport argues that you must learn to tolerate boredom because the ability to concentrate intensely is developed in that very gap. Schedule periods where you do nothing but think, and resist the impulse to fill every idle moment with a device. Practice waiting intentionally when confronted with low-stakes boredom. Teach your brain that silence and stillness are not threats, but the raw material for clarity. Here's a small experiment. Call a friend, then set the phone down and do nothing for 5 minutes. Feel the urge to check notifications rise, then pass. Each time you sit through that tension, you push your attention muscle a little further. Over weeks, these small acts compound, and the mind becomes less jittery, more patient, capable of sustaining deep, uninterrupted work for longer stretches. Rule 3. Quit social media. This rule is controversial because social media promises connection, branding, and information. But Newport asks you to be selective. Not all tools are created equal. The right tool for one person could be a time sink for another. Ask, does this tool provide more value than the attention it demands? If the answer is no, it's worth letting go. This isn't a moral panic about technology. It's a pragmatic cost-benefit analysis. For many, social media delivers small social rewards at the expense of sustained attention. For creators, influencers, or those who need the platform for business, the calculus might be different. But for most of us, quitting or drastically reducing social media frees enormous mental space for meaningful work. Imagine tearing a single page out of a thick book and insisting the whole story remains readable. Social media is like that single page, but the book of your life is written in attention. Removing the page might feel scary because you don't know what immediate social feedback you'll lose. But in exchange, you gain the capacity to read, write, and create chapters that actually matter. Rule 4. Drain the shallows. Shallow work will always exist. Emails, quick meetings, administrative tasks. The key is to minimize shallow work's halo over your calendar. Protect your high-value time and ruthlessly schedule your shallow tasks into discrete, limited slots. Use batching. Set aside specific blocks for meetings, email, and admin so they don't seep into your deep work. Make shallow work as efficient as possible, and guard your attention with as much fervor as you would guard money. This rule is also about saying no. The modern workplace often rewards being on more than being effective. Learn to be polite but firm about what you will and will not do. Push for clarity in meetings. Is this meeting necessary, or could the objective be accomplished another way? Use tools and automations to offload repetitive tasks. Create standards for your communication, short, scheduled, decisive, so that the volume of low-value tasks doesn't drown the important ones. Across these 4 rules, a theme emerges. Structure your life so that deep work is possible and habitual. Practical strategies help bridge intention and practice. One powerful technique is time blocking. Define every hour of your day in advance for specific activities. This doesn't mean rigid perfectionism. It means making a conscious plan about where your attention will go. Time blocking reduces the chance that your day will be hijacked by the urgent but unimportant. Another practical move is to create rituals and set boundaries around deep sessions. Maybe you work in a sparse room with a particular chair and a kettle. Maybe you always put your phone in another room. Maybe you set a 90-minute timer. These small choices create a mental cue. When I sit here, I enter deep work. Rituals reduce friction and make it easier to start. Humans are habit machines. Design the environment so the habit does the heavy lifting. We also need to consider the psychology of interruptions. Interruptions are like termites. Their damage is not only the lost minutes, but the cognitive cost of switching. Every time you switch tasks, your brain must rebuild context, a slow, costly process. Therefore, protect blocks of uninterrupted time. When you must be reachable, create office hours or explicit windows for interruption so the rest of the time remains sacred. But rules and rituals alone are not enough. Examples help the lessons land. Consider the story of a young professor who found that his most creative work happened during the deep, uninterrupted hours when campus was quiet. He learned to lock those hours on his calendar and treat them like classes he could not miss. Over time, his output and reputation grew. Or think of a startup founder who blocked mornings for design and afternoons for meetings. The mornings yielded breakthroughs. The afternoons handled coordination. The deliberate separation prevented the noise of meetings from smothering creative thought. Deep work also fuels mastery. Newport quotes the idea that real skill improvement requires long, uninterrupted practice. The craftsman doesn't get better because they spend more hours with distractions. They get better because those hours are deliberate, focused, and challenging. Depth compounds. The more time you spend in concentrated practice, the faster your skills grow, and the more impactful your output becomes. We should talk about the economic logic too. In the knowledge economy, there are 3 factors that determine success: the ability to quickly learn complicated things, the ability to produce high-value work, and the rarity of the ability. Deep work improves all 3. If you can learn faster and produce better work, you become more valuable in any field. In markets saturated with shallow outputs, depth stands out. Now let's address resistance. The excuses you tell yourself when you avoid deep work. I work better under pressure. I need my phone to stay informed. Often these justifications are ways to avoid discomfort. Deep work is uncomfortable at first because it exposes how thin your patience is. But discomfort is not the same as impossibility. Start small. Schedule a single sacred 45-minute session today. Do it tomorrow. Then repeat. The resistance will diminish as the practice strengthens your attention. There are also social strategies that reinforce deep work. Share your deep work plan with colleagues or roommates. When people understand that you have protected time, interruptions drop. Create norms on your team for when to email and when to message. Sometimes the most important change is cultural. Make deep work respectable in your environment. Led by example. If leadership models focus, teams will follow. An underrated part of this method is deliberate downtime. Deep work isn't a relentless grind. It requires rest. Newport emphasizes that rest and idleness are essential for creativity because the brain needs time to consolidate insights. Schedule downtime that's genuinely restorative. Physical exercise, long walks, or undistracted time with a book. These activities replenish your cognitive resources and help incubate ideas. Don't mistake constant activity for productivity. The mind needs space to form the elegant connections that make deep work possible. Let's make this practical with a short blueprint you can apply tomorrow. First, pick a high-value task, something that would move your life forward if you could complete a major chunk of it. Second, block a clear chunk of time in the morning when your willpower is highest. Third, create a ritual. Shut your notifications, place your phone out of reach, have a water bottle, set a timer for 60 to 90 minutes. Fourth, work without multitasking. If the mind wanders, gently bring it back and keep going. Fifth, when the session ends, close the day with a single review. What did you accomplish and what will you tackle next time? Repeat this rhythm, and you will find that your output and clarity grow quickly. Real transformation comes from sustained practice, not a single heroic day. The temptation to sprint is strong. Instead, imagine the steady rhythm of a rower, small, consistent strokes carrying you farther than a frantic burst ever could. Deep work is the same. It's cumulative. A single deep session is valuable, but a life structured around regular deep sessions becomes extraordinary. We also need to reframe failure to protect your mental health. You will slip. You will check your phone. You will answer an unnecessary email. That's not evidence that deep work is impossible. It's evidence that you are human. Use slips as data, adjust your rituals, tighten your boundaries, and try again. Over time, micro changes compound into macro transformation. There's a powerful closing image to hold in your mind. Imagine 2 lives. In the first, you drift. Small tasks consume your days, and you arrive at the end of each week feeling busy but empty. Creativity seems sporadic, and your best ideas remain unformed. In the second life, you protect time like a precious account. You deposit attention into deep work sessions, and your skills compound. You read more, think longer, and produce work that shapes the world around you. The second life is not necessarily faster or easier, but it's richer. The work you produce there has weight. Now, a few objections you might have. I can't block big chunks every day. Fine, start with what you can. 30 minutes on Monday, 45 on Wednesday. Newport's method is scalable. Even small, regular investments in depth yield disproportionate returns. My job expects me to be responsive. Then carve out windows of responsiveness that don't destroy your most creative hours. But social media helps my business. If it truly does, limit it to narrowly defined windows and measurable objectives. The point is not asceticism, it's strategic allocation of attention. The final idea I want to leave you with is this. Attention is a personal identity. Where you put your attention shapes who you become. If your attention is snapped from task to task, your life fragments. If you choose what to focus on, you craft your story. Deep work is a practice of authorship. It gives you the power to design the arc of your life. Not around the noise, but around the meaningful, the valuable, the scarce. So here's your invitation. Don't wait until you feel perfect or motivated. Start with a single commitment. Tomorrow morning, for 60 minutes, do one thing that matters without interruption. Close the door on distractions. Let boredom come and do not flee. Notice the temptation to slip and stay. When you finish, look back at what you created and how it felt. That feeling, the rare joy of having made something with uninterrupted attention, will pull you back. Repeat. Deep work is both practical and philosophical. It's a reclaiming of the self in a time that profits from our fragmentation. It's a quiet rebellion against the tyranny of the immediate. It asks for patience, ritual, and courage. The courage to say no to small rewards for the sake of deep accomplishment. If you accept it, your thinking will sharpen, your learning will accelerate, and the things you build will matter more than the noise you ignore. You don't need permission to begin. All you need is the decision to protect your attention, and the small structure to make protection habitual. In the quiet hours of focused work, you will not only create better products, ideas, or outcomes, you will learn, slowly and surely, to be more of who you were meant to be. An undistracted mind, capable of depth and ready to craft something that lasts. Take a breath. Choose one thing. Start now.